What would you do if one day you went from being a doctor to the patient? Today, we're sharing a story that flips the script in the most powerful way and shines a light on a rare cancer that most people have never heard of, but changes lives in an instant. In this episode, we're joined by Dr. Achee, the medical director, and his wife, Annie Achee, the president of the National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation. Dr. Achee spent years as a diagnostic radiologist until a sudden and unexpected diagnosis in 2011 made him a patient battling LMS, rare and aggressive form of cancer. Today, we're going to talk about his personal journey, what LMS really is, and why it is so difficult to treat. We'll also explore how the foundation is empowering patients and caregivers through education, advocacy, and groundbreaking research efforts. And I'm very excited to announce that Truman Charities is partnering with the National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation for our upcoming Derby party on May 2nd. This is very personal for Jerry and I. One of his very, very good friends, Bruno, lost his wife, Monica, last year to LMS. So this Derby party is in her honor. We are very excited to raise as much funds as we can for patients with LMS and critical research. As you know, Truman Charities is a 100% volunteer-based organization, and so is the National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation. So every single dollar raised goes directly to research and helping patients. Make sure to go down to the show notes so you can purchase tickets to our upcoming Derby party. So let's welcome Dr. Achee and Annie to Truman Charities. Annie, you are the president, and then Dr. Achee, you are the medical director and of the National, and I hope I pronounce this right, it is Leiomyosarcoma, more commonly known as LMS Foundation. And Annie, I'm going to talk a little bit with you about the actual organization and how you guys are fundraising and the future of that. But first, I wanted to talk to you, Dr. Achee. Before you are doing all this work within this organization and the advocacy, you were a diagnostic radiologist, and back in 2011, you ended up becoming a patient yourself. So can you tell us a little bit how your diagnosis unfolded?
Sure, I'm glad to do that. Yeah, I was otherwise healthy. I was 59 and a half years old and practicing radiology. Everything was fine. And one day I rode a stationary bike and I suddenly developed gross hematuria, blood in the urine. And I saw that and I went in to get evaluated. And through the evaluation, they discovered that there was a mass in the wall of the bladder, which I had biopsied. And then because in Denver at that time, we didn't have a dedicated sarcoma team, my urologist recommended I go to another location. So I went to MD Anderson Hospital in Houston, where they did another biopsy just to confirm the diagnosis because they weren't initially here at Denver, they weren't sure what it was. They knew it was a highly malignant tumor, probably a sarcoma. So they confirmed that it was a sarcoma. And after that, I had surgery, had my bladder removed, and then had chemotherapy, 6 courses over 4.5 months. And fortunately for me, since that time, I've been what they call net, no evidence of disease. So I was very, very fortunate, as normally that's not the course of the disease.
So can you tell us, for people that don't know, what is a sarcoma and then exactly what is LMS?
Sure. Everyone knows they're cancers. Cancers are two main types, or actually 3 main types. There's blood cancers, leukemia, lymphomas. There are solid tumor like breast cancer, colon. Sarcomas are everything else in the body. They're the supporting tissues. They're the bones. They're the tendons. They're the soft tissues, the fat, the cartilage. All of those things are where sarcomas lies. And so they're different than carcinomas, which is what most other cancers are. And so leiomyosarcoma is a Greek word that means soft tissue mass or tumor. Okay. And so and of that, it means smooth muscle. Leiomyosarcoma means smooth muscle. So where does that occur? It occurs in women in the uterus, in the wall. The myometrium is a smooth muscle. And then usually in the walls of blood vessels, veins primarily, is where they occur. So leiomyosarcomas can occur anywhere in the body. Okay, all sarcomas can pretty much. but it can occur, the main locations are in the extremities and in the uterus, and then in the retroperitoneum, which is the tissue behind your bowel in your abdomen. Those are the three most common locations. So sometimes, if it's in extremities, it presents as a palpable mass. Unfortunately, if it's in the retroperitoneum, or like in my case, in the wall of the bladder, you can't palpate that. So it has to be found either by a symptom, or often it's found just fortuitously. A person comes in with some other issue, some vague pain, and they do a scan and they find the tumor. But that's what they are. Sarcomas are very rare. They're less, if you count all the sarcomas, and there are actually 75 to 100 subtypes, depending on how you want to divide them up. So it's very rare. All of the sarcomas, bone and soft tissue together, are less than 1% of all cancers. So that's how rare they are.
Yeah, I was reading that on your website, and I was really surprised that it was less than 1% of all cancers. And I wanted to ask you, why is LMS considered such a challenging cancer to treat?
Well, different cancers sometimes have mutations that we have drugs that we can treat. Unfortunately, our tumors is one that doesn't have many mutations. And also, people hear now about immunotherapy for melanomas and lung cancers. Well, sarcomas as a rule, and including leiomyosarcoma, are what they call cold tumors. That means they don't have antigens on the surface that the body can recognize as foreign. And so the immunotherapies don't work for our disease. So the best treatment is surgery. If you can get the whole tumor out and no evidence of spread anywhere, they don't spread later, that's your best chance. Once it recurs, we have very few treatments actually that are effective in the metastatic phase. Some women have what's called a PARP inhibitor, which was discovered for breast and ovarian cancer. And if they have uterine leiomyosarcoma, they might have the BRCA gene in their tumor, and there is a medication that will treat that. So it's many of the treatments. I was treated with the same drugs we used 40 years ago when I was before I was in medical school even. So it's, we don't have great treatments, unfortunately, but we're doing a lot of research, and that's part of what our foundation does, is funding the research. It's amazing how many bright young people are working on this, but it's just a very difficult disease. And many people say if we can figure out leiomyosarcoma, it will help us with other sarcomas as well, because it's so heterogeneous too. The tumor itself is heterogeneous. Different parts of the tumor have different genetic makeups, so it makes it very difficult to treat.
So out of all of the individuals that are diagnosed with LMS, what is the survival rate?
Okay, the survival rate, I mean, it varies. It depends, how extensive it is. But the rule of thumb is about 65% survive 5 years. But after that, obviously the numbers go down. But that's usually the course.
So what, in your opinion, if you could go back to when you were first diagnosed, what would your advice be to a patient who has first been diagnosed with LMS?
Okay. The most important thing by far is, number one, to make sure you have a good pathologist review your slides, because most pathologists in community practice don't see sarcomas that often. And even the sarcoma pathology experts have difficulty sometimes classifying the sarcomas. So it's important that, number one, that you have your tumor reviewed. It doesn't have to be reviewed by a sarcoma expert in pathology. Then you can be treated locally, but most people need to go to a sarcoma center of excellence, okay? I mean, everyone can't be great at everything, and so sarcomas are rare, and a general oncologist may see a few, but they don't treat them every day. The sarcoma centers of excellence treat them all day, every day. That's all they do, is treat sarcomas. So it doesn't mean you have to be treated there. I was treated in Denver, but I went to MD Anderson, and they gave the protocol that they used in Denver to treat me. And so a second opinion is essential to do. And the pathology to prove the right subtype so you get the right treatment is important. But that's what I would tell. And I tell patients all the time that when we talk to them on the phone, that, did you have your tumor genomically tested? And and that's the other thing, you want the tumor to be genomically tested, because you might have a mutation that would let you have a targeted therapy, not just a general chemotherapy.
So you often emphasize, and I've heard this a couple of times when you are talking on some of your videos, that you emphasize patients should be their own advocates. So what does that really mean?
Okay, being your own advocate, Annie, that's her big byline, be your own best advocate. And the reason for that is that you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be able to read, detailed research articles, but you need to know about your disease. And more importantly, you need to know what questions to ask your doctor. And that's, Annie can talk about that more, but that's what we do in our foundation is to try to give people that we're here as a resource. We don't tell people how to get treated. That's not our job. We're not oncologists. We tell people what if I was you, I would ask these questions. Okay. And this is what clinical trials might be available that you could mention to the doctor, or have they heard about this treatment if it's a general, a general oncologist. And that's how we try to educate them and the caregivers. It's very important for the supporting people in the family to also know and to also make sure that someone always goes with the patient to their appointments because the patients are anxious, they're concerned, they're scared and they don't always listen clearly. And it's important to have another person there who also may be scared, but at least can be a second set of ears to hear. So you have to be your own best advocate. I think you get much better care if the doctors know that you know what you're talking. Doesn't mean you go in and tell you about, oh, I want this treatment, but at least they know, oh, you've heard about that? How did you know about that? And so I think that's what's important. Be educated and you'll get much better care.
So, Annie, obviously, you have experience, with the caregiving aspect to it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what the foundation focuses on, which is first the patient and family education, funding support for research projects. So, tell me a little bit about each of those focuses. Let's start with the patient and family education.
It's really very special to us. Uh, the patient education programs are one of the focused pillars of our foundation. We feel that in order for patients to be their own best advocates, they need, and the caregivers too, we need to have education sessions for them every month. And we bring in the experts, the physician scientists, or other experts outside the oncology arena, say nutrition, exercise, emotional well-being. We bring all those specialists in to talk to the patients either virtually, but we really like to be at the sarcoma centers of excellence with the patients so that the patients can see their oncologists in a different light outside the appointment. The patient education programs are the most important because they really allow the patient to ask the questions of the experts so that they can become their own best advocates when they go to their appointments, because they're brief appointments. So really, they only average 12 to 15-minute appointments. And so they need to be very precise, and they need to know who their multidisciplinary care team is, because there are other people other than the oncologist that are on the team. And they have to understand too that they themselves, along with their caregivers, are also part of the team in the decision-making strategy and process of deciding what treatment they should move forward with.
You guys have a patient conference call monthly. Tell me a little bit about the experience that you've had being involved with these patients during this journey and some of the positive impact that your foundation has had on some of these patients.
Well, our patient testimonials say a lot, and those are on our website. And even the physicians have also had testimonials about the quality of our programs that we offer. We have 24/7 access to our hotline, which is us here at home. We want patients to call us. We want caregivers to call us anytime, day or night, which they have. We just spoke to two last night, and they call from all over the world. Mitch has helped a patient in the UK for 4 years. We both did, but he really, being the physician that he is, he's really been able to help guide patients to what some of the imaging studies mean, because many times the oncologist doesn't have time to discuss all of that. And so he can get into the weeds with helping the patient better understand what some of these scans mean and how they are interpreted. And that allows the patient to ask more questions of their oncology care team.
What do you think are some of the biggest concerns that caregivers have when a loved one is diagnosed with LMS?
Well, it was what I experienced. Well, you are thrown into a total new world because you want to be able to be an effective support for your loved one. And so they don't know where to start. But first, we have to tell them that they must start with understanding the disease as fast as they can and understanding what the symptoms will be when they start chemotherapy or radiation so that they can be prepared to help their loved one through those challenges.
Mhm. It does, you guys mentioned on your site that this organization is kind of a compass and a guide for individuals that are newly diagnosed. Let's talk a little bit about the lack of funding due to it being such a rare cancer. How are you guys able to get funds for this necessary research?
Well, it's really is a challenge, and especially for this year, it's a big challenge because we're getting a request for not only to fund research grants. Every year we put out a call for research grants. We try to fund 2 a year, but most of the time it's just been 1 a year because we have other funding commitments. For instance, we have a specialized it's called the SPORE project, Specialized Programs of Research Excellence, which we fund every year for the last 5 years. And that's a very important program that focuses on LMS arms of different aspects of the translational and biology study of the disease. And it's a global program, and we want to stay involved in that. And then the researchers also want us to help with different aspects of the research that they're doing, the studies that they're doing to analyze the data. And so we're trying to help with that as well. But we don't have a real vibrant research funding mechanism. We just hope that patients with their families and with their friends will see what we do, appreciate the way we do it, the programs that we deliver, and be inspired to have events, organic fundraising capabilities that we rely on in order to fund what we need to fund and what we want to fund, because we want to be in every footprint of research that we can to help the research community moving forward with this disease.
Is there any research that's going on right now that you are really excited about?
We're very excited about the SPORE project that I mentioned. And we also are involved in what's called the Catalyst Project through Dr. Jonathan Fletcher, where he brings young researchers to his round table, and we help support the young researchers stay connected with LMS research because they could go to any sarcoma subtype because there's 100 to 150. And so the fact that they have picked LMS is really special for us, and we want to make sure that we're on the forefront of supporting that program, supporting those specialists. But the fact that we've also launched the International Research Roundtable, which now has 140 researchers, when we started with less than 40, and we're in our 8th year, that says volumes about the research community focusing on us, focusing on what they want to do to help us, and they're on their second consensus paper for the management of the disease in the controversies and challenges and consensus of coming together as a global community to decide how this disease should be best treated.
So, how do you see the future of the LMS Foundation?
Well, I see it as thriving and moving forward in all the corridors of research, the research community that we're currently involved in. And we plan to continue very strongly. And we just recently received information from someone who wants to is a startup for rare cancer. They are considering the considerations of the use of plausible mechanism framework to develop individualized therapies that target specific genetic conditions with known biological causes. So they want us to be involved in that. And the fact that they come to us for this is very special to us because we're small. We're very small. And but they recognize what we do and how we do it. And so they appreciate being able to reach out to us and connect.
So Annie and Dr. Achee, before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think the listeners should know?
Well, about the foundation, I think they should know we're an all-volunteer foundation. No one gets paid. But I think that people need to know these are people that are committed. All of our board members have been touched by the disease or had the disease or had a loved one who passed of the disease. So they're very, engaged in the whole process and have been through the disease process with their loved ones. And I think that's, important for people to know. And again, we just can't stress enough. You've got to, the key is education, to educate yourself about this rare cancer. It's scary. We know how scared everyone, they're petrified. But I think once you get over that initial, process of being scared about the disease and not knowing how to pronounce it, I think you need to, move forward. And as we tell people, no one knows. Everybody is different. As we've gone through this process, people that you think should do well don't do well. People, some people live. I'm a 15-year survivor. That's rare. Okay, but we know 25 and 30-year survivors, 40-year survivor. So it's not the end of the world, but you need to make sure you get the best treatment that you can get to give you the best opportunity to make it through the process.
Annie, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I would. I'd just like to say that our mission is support, education, advocacy, and research funding. And we also support the young researchers by acknowledging through funding their capability to attend our international research roundtable meetings so that they can come to the work groups. As far as our patient education, we always have the ABCs of the new diagnosis for patients and caregivers. And we have the Ask the Experts. We comb the research articles every day. Patients can know what does that research mean for me in my disease and how does it affect the future of my treatment strategies. We have caregiving counts guidance quarterly for new caregivers. We have the Circle of Hope, which is a brand new roundtable for patients to come together to discuss what have been the common challenges that they have experienced from diagnosis to end of treatment. And so we started the Sarcoma Pathways Quick Tips. So when there's a new patient and they just want to know, gee, where do I start with this? They go straight to the Quick Tips and then they go take a deep dive into our website to better understand where they can find more in-depth information from the quick tips that we have offered. We also have the Clinical Trial Patient Perspective Network, and that's for patients that are thinking about participating in a trial, those that are in a trial currently, and those that have completed a trial. So that's a network roundtable that we have quarterly as well, so that patients can talk to each other and they can really get a lot out of that session because of different aspects of what they're involved in.
And how can somebody reach you guys? What's your website, your socials?
Website is though the the NLMSF.org if they want to go to the website, and from there you can join the Facebook pages. Annie puts out a newsletter every other week now, plus snapshots and the other alternate weeks, so they can sign up for those. There's no cost or anything for those, and those give a lot of upgoing information, updates on clinical trials and things like that. So the best way is just go to the website NLMSF, National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation .com, and get most of the information and access to all the things that Annie's been talking about.
But Our newsletters are really important, Jamie. They're very important. They're biweekly, but in between those biweekly, we have the snapshot news too. And that's a quick read of updates that we want to share with patients in between newsletters.
Great. And I'm going to have that all in the show notes for everyone. So just go ahead and look down and you'll find all of the information. I am very excited that we are partnering up with you guys. You are a volunteer-based organization. We are a volunteer-based organization. So every single dollar raised at the Derby Party will be going directly to helping patients and funding research for LMS. And we are very happy to be doing this Derby Party in honor of our very good friend Bruno and his late wife, Monica. So I want to thank you both so much for coming on. And I am very excited to see how much we are going to be able to raise for you guys for our Derby Party. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another Truman Charities podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a lot about LMS and why it is so critical for us to be raising funds for research since it is such a rare cancer. And of course, if you want to support this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review the Truman Charities podcast on your Apple app or Spotify. It only takes a few minutes and it goes a long way. It's how our podcast is introduced to new listeners. And then also, if you'd like to follow Truman Charities, you can follow us on Instagram at Jamie_Truman Charities, Facebook at Truman Charities. You can follow me on LinkedIn at Jamie Truman. And then, of course, go to trumancharities.com so you can purchase your tickets for our upcoming Derby Party. I will be having another podcast to talk about, our sponsors and a lot of our gifts that we have and all of the great stuff coming up. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Truman Charities podcast. Until next time.